Alright guys, so if you don't follow Libs or TikTok on Twitter or whatever platforms they're on, you should be doing so. And the reason why is because Libs or TikTok is really doing God's work, okay? They expose the things that leftists swear up and down does not exist. Okay, they expose them. Yes, a lot of the instances are anecdotal, but they happen enough where I think it's legitimate for state legislators to consider investigating certain behaviors and passing legislation in order to prevent those behaviors. Okay, because one time is too many. Okay, especially when it comes to a topic such as teaching 5-year-old kids about sensitive subjects like sexual orientation and gender identity, right? Those things should be reserved for parents, okay? If parents want to talk about that stuff with their kids, hey, I ain't got no problems with it, right? But it's not one of those things that should be taught in a public school classroom. At the very least, not to very young and susceptible children like kindergartners and elementary school kids, right? And like critical race theory, when Republicans take the initiative to, hey, you know what, we're gonna nip this problem in the bud before it becomes bigger. It's an obvious issue. Oh, no. It doesn't exist. You're making it up, right? And then they just literally extrapolate the worst things about the bill that are not even true. Guys, you have people out there that literally believe the so-called Don't Say Gay bill bans people from mentioning the word gay in public schools. That's literally what they think, when that's not the case at all. Okay, so with that being said, The View is going to discuss this bill, okay, and it's going to show how ignorant they are, not just on this bill, but on this subject in general, okay, because leftists, they don't take time to really research this stuff and to figure out why is the Florida legislature doing this. It ain't just out of bigotry. It's because this is an actual issue and this thing is actually happening in schools. We have these woke teachers that have infiltrated classrooms that are basically pushing their gender ideology on students. That's what they're doing. It's been documented, okay? It might not be in the curriculum, but it is there. We have enough evidence to prove it. So with that being said, I'm going to react to them discussing this because, again, this is peak ignorance. It reminds me of the critical race theory conversation. So before I get in that, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, you like my commentary, please feel free to support my channel using the links in the description below. You can support the Patreon, you can support the PayPal, you can support the merch. There are multiple ways to support the channel if you would like to do so, including getting yourself one of my signature racist mugs, which is a daily reminder of the 2022 definition of racist according to the left, which is anybody that disagrees with the Democrat Party. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into The View, discuss the so-called Don't Say Gay bill.
The Florida Senate is expected to vote today on the so-called Don't Say Gay bill that would prohibit public schools from teaching about sexual orientation or gender identity to children in kindergarten through 3rd grade.
She says that like it's a bad thing, right? This is terrible. This bill is gonna prevent teachers from teaching kids about gender identity and sexual orientation in kindergarten. This is terrible. You should be outraged. I'll tell you guys, the left has a sick agenda for children. I don't know how much more obvious it has to be made. I mean, it's very obvious what they think, okay?
I must point out, this is not happening. It has never been happening in the school system.
Lie. Same lie they told with critical race theory. Let's just go ahead and roll the film.
Story time. This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own. The topic of gender and genitals came up.
The main reason for me about why having queer representation and queer educators and queer education in the classroom from a young age is so that these kids will grow up to either be wonderful and accepting allies who have had this normalized in their lives from a young age. If you normalize queerness from a young age, they're more likely to be more accepting and understanding. And if they do not grow up to be good allies, I hope that those kids who later on realize that they are queer will love themselves and are able to express themselves and be proud of who they are.
So I found out that I'm not allowed to tell students that I'm gay because it could be seen as supporting a single political party and it could be seen as a political issue. So if anybody asks, I just really like rainbows. I just really like rainbows. I really like rainbows. No politics in Miss Leia's classroom. She just really likes rainbows. Rainbow duct tape? That's just because I really like rainbows. Rainbows aren't political. Not at all. Rainbows are just colorful and fun. It's not a political thing at all. It's just that I really like rainbows. What? This? This isn't political. This is just that I really like rainbows.
So I have one student who, ever since I explained to my students that I was non-binary, it's been living in his head a little bit. I think that he is still confused and fascinated by it. It doesn't upset him, but it's something that, like, clearly he's, like, processing, because he'll ask me questions fairly often about it. So we are doing arts and crafts again. I guess arts and crafts is a good time to have conversations. Things are quiet, kids are focused. I'm walking around checking on how they're doing. So he and his friend are sitting down and drawing, so I go up to their table, and he goes, "Teacher Rebecca, are you ever going to decide if you want to be a girl or a boy?" So I say, well, it's not really a decision like that, and you don't have to choose between one or the other. I already figured out that I'm neither.
All right, so obviously that is anecdotal, right? But the point is this. There are some examples that are just overt, like teachers just like, yo, we're having queer gender studies with kindergartners, right? That is out there. Okay, so Whoopi's already been proven wrong. That has never happened. No, it has happened, right? And then you have other videos out there that suggest that although it may not necessarily be a course per se, but what happens is that a lot of these woke teachers that infiltrate these schools, they love to express who they are, right? And they'll say, hey guys, I'm non-binary, or I'm this, I'm that, and they will use that as a way to teach these kids and to introduce these topics in the class without actually having a curriculum or a lesson plan on it, right? They want to foster discussion by talking about themselves. But my point is that just like critical race theory, a lot of this stuff is not overt because teachers have discretion in regards to what they want to teach in their classrooms to a certain extent, right? So there are organizations out there like Gender Spectrum that provide a steady stream of professional development and classroom resources that teachers use, okay? Like, for example, they help teachers introduce materials such as like the genderbread person to kids, right? They'll read stories that are based off things that are supposed to help kids understand gender orientation, right? So those things, again, they're actively being pushed in the classrooms, okay?
And yet here we have yet another thing for kids to worry about. So this has led to protests, student walkouts, and a tearful plea from Florida's first openly gay state senator, Shervin Jones. Take a look.
After taking 30 years of just wanting to make him and my mom proud, and just coming out and just saying who I am. And so when I see these kids, I don't think y'all understand how much courage it takes for these children to show up every day.
Bruh, that's just incredible. It's incredible. Like, even if you are, LGBTQ or whatever, why do you want this stuff pushed on kindergartners? I don't get that, okay? Why can't you just be like, hey, you know what? Maybe they should just wait till they're 18, okay? I feel like that's a reasonable kind of position that these people don't seem to want to take. They don't want to take the reasonable position, right? They act like people are trying to ban people from, being transgender or, having a non-straight sexuality, period. And that's not what's happening at all. We're just saying, hey, we don't want this pushed on children. It's really that simple.
So is this bill shaming kids from being who they are and punishing teachers who actually want to help them? I mean,
no, because how can a 5-year-old know who they are? They're 5. How can they know their sexual identity? They don't know that. They're 5.
I'm not sure what the point of this
Well, considering
is.
it's kindergarten through 3rd, the
Yeah.
bill isn't accomplishing anything.
But
Because
if you look
Yes, it is, because we've seen this stuff being taught or pushed in classrooms that are K through 3.
at the language, because I that didn't make sense to
Yeah.
me, so I looked at the language, and it says in kindergarten through 3rd grade or.
And this is
Okay.
the important part, in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. So really that extends it. It's so vague. And
It is, but I mean,
it extends it
focusing
to
in on the
whatever grade.
kindergarten through third is not a time where many of us had sex talk at all, sexuality, sex ed. So it's not solving anything. But
Yeah, because back in the day, teachers used to not be so woke. So yeah, you never saw it in classrooms then. But today is different. And see, this is what frustrates me. Ignorance does not mean that it doesn't exist, right? These people, because they're ignorant, they will quickly claim, oh, it doesn't exist. It's not happening. Just because you're ignorant and you don't know doesn't mean it's not happening. They're not just wasting time passing legislation just to, pass the legislation. That's not what's happening. They're passing it because this stuff is actually happening, right? Again, this stuff really frustrates me.
But what it is doing is creating a veil of shame that already existed in a journey that's been fought for years for people to be their authentic selves. And now you're taking away schools. Teachers are first responders for kids.
Yeah.
They're the first responders for anything going on, whether it's abuse at home or otherwise. We have seen kids, I don't know if you ever saw the Gabriel Fernandez story.
Yeah.
That kid was brutally tortured. One of the ignorant slurs being thrown at him by his, I don't know if it was a stepfather or his mother's boyfriend, was, "You're gay." There are people that are so violently unhinged and ignorant that this can be a problem for some people.
Yeah, but see, that's deeper than a conversation between a teacher and a student, right? That's a conversation that the teacher needs to take to the principal and then ultimately to Child Protective Services, right? That ain't really got anything to do with this bill, right? If a child is being abused and part of the abuse is a parent, talking about the child's sexual identity or whatever, or calling them, slurs or whatever, again, that is a higher level issue than a conversation between a teacher, okay? So I don't really understand why she's using this example.
So you can't take teachers away from these kids because when
They're
they are
not.
obligated to then out their own children. This is, again, a journey we have not finished yet. People are still ostracized from their families. There are still people that try to pray the gay away. There's a lot of that still going on. So if we start to go backwards in this journey of allowing people to do this, this will be a real problem, especially for kids that young. Because when you come out, a lot of, my brother's gay, and I remember him sharing this story. He started to feel different about the age of 5 or 6.
Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? He started to feel different about the age of 5 or 6. What does that actually mean? Just because he felt different, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gay. That's not what it means. Because I'm going to tell you something. Kids at that age do all kinds of stuff, right? They do all kinds of stuff, and they do it out of ignorance. They don't know. They don't do it because of their sexual identity, okay? That's not why they do it, right? Young boys do things with each other that could be defined by adults as homosexual. It happens. However, those boys, as they grow up and they get older and they mature, they understand that, okay, I don't really like doing this, okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, that happens. But see, the left, this is how they think. Any type of behavior, right? Whether we're talking about, gender stuff. If a boy wants to wear a dress or a girl wants to play with, G.I. Joe, that means that automatically they're trans, okay? Or if, a boy or girl shows some type of homosexual behavior at a young age, that automatically means that that's their lifestyle. And that's not true. Most kids, a vast majority of them, grow out of this stuff, okay? So it's no real reason to have a conversation with them about it at a young age outside of parents, right? Because some parents will just straight up tell their kids, hey, this ain't right. You ain't supposed to be doing this. And that's, again, that's for the parents. But that's not the place of the teacher in the public school to do that, okay? But again, the left, it seems like they have this agenda where they just want kids who display certain behaviors just to accept that, hey, you might be this, you might be that, when it's just not true. Most kids grow out of that stuff as they get older. But it's almost like they want kids to embrace behavior that's not necessarily behavior that they're going to continue as adults. They want them just to embrace it as kids so that they ultimately do continue it as adults. And that, to me, it bothers me. It really bothers me because that's what it is at this point. I mean, the right is simply saying, wait. That's all you got to do. Wait. These kids are kids. Let kids be kids. That's what the right is saying. But these people, they don't want kids to be kids. They want kids to, at an early age, identify themselves as trans or, lesbian, gay, whatever. And it's just like you gotta understand, these are children. They don't know. They're ignorant. Let them be themselves and they will grow into what they're ultimately supposed to be. But apparently that's a controversial position, okay? Controversial in 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So if he had asked a question, not knowing what it was to be gay, but to feel different, he could have been in a situation where he turned to a teacher that had to betray him. And I just think this is going the wrong direction.
Well, how
in
about
this fight.
kids who have same-sex parents?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if
you got same-sex parents, that's up to the parents. If the parents want to talk about that, cool. That doesn't mean the teacher should be talking about it.
If you're the child of a same-sex couple, what you can't talk about your weekend with your folks, all the stuff that you all do. I don't know.
That's not what the bill does. That's not what the bill does. Not ban kids from having discussions. If they want to have discussions about their parents among other kids and their parents have to be same-sex, the bill's not banning that.
Understand the point. I don't understand making kids' lives harder than they need to be.
The cruel?
No, having these discussions are making kids' lives harder than they need to be, because as you saw in these videos, these discussions are confusing children. Okay, they're confusing kids, right? But again, these people right here think, well, I don't see the point of this because I'm ignorant. Take time to do the damn research before you go on TV and say stuff out of ignorance. That's all I'm asking. But just because they haven't seen it, they're pretending like this is just not a thing, and it obviously is.
Is the point, I think, and you hear that all the time, and it's to shame families, it's to shame children, and we could see this coming, I think. When you start banning books, when you start banning history in the classroom, what is the next step?
What history's been banned?
It's banning discussions about sexual orientation and gender identity. It's then banning discussions about certain religions. We have been on this path, I'm sorry, since your boss former boss took office. He started saying the quiet part out loud. The discrimination became transparent and blatant. And
is she really blaming Trump? She is really out here blaming Trump. What does Trump have to do with this?
This is the result of it.
Well, and this one's personal to me, and you bring up a great point because of my former boss. I have a 14-year-old son who is gay, recently came out as gay, which I have his permission to talk about this, by the way. And he didn't want to tell his friends where I worked.
Yeah.
He was like, he was ashamed of where I worked, rightfully so. Yeah. But also the fact that now there's this "Don't Say Gay" even slogan out there, it's making children feel different.
No, the "Don't Say Gay" slogan is coming from the Democrats. That's coming from the left. Ron DeSantis didn't say that. The Florida legislators didn't say that. The name of the bill is the Parents' Rights in Education. That's the name of the bill. The left made that up as a way to smear the bill as something that it's not. So if this is making kids feel different, then you need to blame the left for that. But again, I want to know how in the world are you making a 5-year-old feel different about something that they don't understand. Again, I want somebody to explain that to me.
Yeah. And there's a problem, or it's creating a problem. I don't think there is.
Well, to be clear, that saying is coming from critics of the bill.
Okay,
so if it's perpetuating a problem, we've got to be honest about where that comes. That's people pushing back on the bill.
But it's still out there.
Yes.
Don't say gay. Don't say, and I just,
well, that's that's the outcome of it.
Right.
That's really the outcome
of it.
And life's too short for us to do this to the kid.
I thought they didn't allow misinformation on TV like that, right? I mean, I guess The View is technically not news, but oh my God, that was a very ignorant conversation about this bill. These people, again, they haven't done any research. They haven't looked into this stuff. They don't pay attention to this stuff, and they go out here and just say, oh, it doesn't exist. They're doing this for no reason. Oh, it's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. That's what frustrates me about these people, okay? And they're pushing this as mainstream to try to make it seem like, oh, this is just coming out of hate and bigotry, when that's not the case at all. Not the case at all. So like I said, man, I found that discussion to be extremely, extremely, extremely hard to get through, because it's just like, you guys just don't know what you're talking about. You haven't looked into this at all, and you're drawing the conclusion that, this is not a real problem. Right? And so if it's not a real problem, if it's not a real issue, then you shouldn't be worried about the bill, because the bill doesn't do anything if this is not actually happening in school. Right? Same argument I made with critical race theory. If critical race theory is not being taught in school, then why are you worried about the bill for? Nobody's banning the teaching of slavery. Okay? Just like nobody's banning the use of the word gay in school. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.